Welcome to Tough Conversations with David Wood, where play meets depth. We help teams and high-performing leaders like you to master your tough conversations so you succeed in your career and in your life. When we avoid tough conversations, we stay small. Teams stay disengaged, conflicted, and ultimately end up quitting. When we lean in and master our tough conversations, they become the defining moments that literally shape our careers, our relationships, and our lives. So let's dive in and master your next tough conversation so you can be the leader that you would follow. Let's play. But really, I spent 8 months playing this one video game for 8 hours a day.
That's awesome.
I love that reaction.
We could hang out.
Welcome to another episode of Tough Conversations with David Wood. This one's a bit different in that it's personal. Normally I'm giving content. How do you do this? How do you do that? What's going to make your life better? This one's personal. Recently on the Vroom Vroom Veer podcast, I was asked about my journey. How did I get into coaching? How did I burn out and why? How did I come back to coaching? How did I create the world's largest coaching business at the time, which had 150,000 followers? So I decided I want to share that with you guys. I'd like you to know more about me and how it happened. And I hope that something here might inspire you as we talk about some of the challenges that I've had to overcome. Let's dive in. I guess I was kind of in vroom vroom mode because I was great at math. I topped the school in math as well. And what do you do when you're good at math? Well, maybe you become an accountant. I figured that's what I'll do. And then I found out about something called an actuary, which is apparently, well, not apparently, it's harder, way harder to qualify than an accountant. And they get paid more and there's more prestige. So I thought, well, why not go for the top?
Yeah.
And then I found out that some companies were offering scholarships to people who would go and study this. So I got paid to go to university, and such was demand. It was an unbonded scholarship, meaning I could take 3 years of financial support from the company and then go and work for somebody else.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it was extraordinary.
Yeah.
So I was kind of, I would say, on vroom vroom mode because I was just like, that's the natural path. That's what I'm going to do. And then I took a veer. I think I was about 21, and I wanted to travel. And that's what Australians and Germans are really known for traveling. And when we do travel, we don't do a little trip. And I think it's because it's so far to go anywhere.
Right.
You might as well keep on going.
Yeah.
And around the world tickets are fairly cheap. So instead of just going to, say, the US and back, for another $500, you can get 10 stops around the world and come back to Australia.
Oh, wow. I need to do that.
So we tend to do, we don't have South America right at our doorstep. So I took a whole year and then came back to work. They said, we will hold your job for you.
Wow.
So I came back.
Amazing.
And then I did another veer because I realized I love to travel, but I can't afford to keep taking a year off. I don't have the money.
Right.
So my insight was, I want to live in another country and work. And I started asking questions. How do I do that? How do I get a transfer? Because I was with an international company. Is it possible to get a transfer overseas and then I'll be in another culture? And that actually happened. It was a bit of a miracle. But I got transferred to Park Avenue and got to work as an actuary, which I didn't say what that is. I'm sorry. An actuary works with long-term financial projections and statistics.
Usually I think of an insurance company.
Yeah, they set the insurance premiums, superannuation, pension funds. So
you could tell me like you use like a bunch of data and spreadsheets and say like, okay, Jeff, if you fill out this form, you're going to die when you're 72 of a heart attack. Something like that.
It's unlikely that would happen from filling out the form, but I think I know where you're heading.
Yeah. Right.
And I got to work with some big name companies. Like I was with one of the biggest consulting firms in the world. So I got to go to Sony Music and hang with vice presidents. I got to go to Chanel. Ford, Exxon, Philip Morris, worked with some really big names.
Wow.
So I did a veer, but then I was again on vroom vroom mode for a few years, just doing the
Working in New York and
doing the corporate ladder thing until the next
right
until the
until
next
the next
veer, which was
veer,
a big one. I'm
something like that.
26 now,
26 now. Okay.
and then the next veer happened. I wasn't happy in my marriage, and I someone suggested a personal development course, and they were saying my wife should do it. But the more I heard about it, the more I thought I should do that. I don't know much about myself. I had a judgment that people who did self-help were weak-willed and easily manipulated, and that people selling courses in self-help were just out to prey on them. That was
Okay.
my model, but I was still pulled to at least do one course and get out, despite them all wearing name tags and smiling way too much. It felt very cultish. I went and did it, and they cracked open my cynicism, and I realized they really do care about the world. Like, they devoted their lives to having the world be better, and I didn't know that existed. And
Okay.
and I couldn't help coaching people during the course. So people, I'm a logical guy, and someone would get stuck, and I'd say, "Well, have you tried what the teacher said yesterday?" And I changed somebody's life overnight.
Wow.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. Her husband had had an affair 10 years earlier, and she'd been using that to manipulate and control him for 10 years. Doesn't
Wow.
sound like a happy marriage,
No.
right?
Right. Right.
And then I find out that she had an affair 10 years earlier, but she hadn't told him that piece of information.
Aha. Wow. Okay.
So watching her as she's in tears, realize what she'd done and start to look at risking her marriage to tell the truth and to get on an even playing field was extraordinary and beautiful. And she went and did it. And she came back and
Wow.
she said, talk about a tough conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Wow. That's up there. Right.
And she came back and said, she reported to the whole group that her and her husband felt like they were floating on air 6 feet above the ground for the entire weekend, totally in love.
Yeah. Is this at the point where you become working as a coach full time? Are we there now?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I quit my consulting, and I let go of my actuarial designation, my qualification. That was hard
Yeah.
because I
That's
sweat
really
blood and
hard.
tears
Yes.
to qualify, and then I'm quitting.
Right.
But I didn't want to keep up with 40 hours a week of
Yeah.
continuing credits that I had to do. So I let it go.
Right.
And that was a big step in my life.
Oh
And
yeah.
then I think I was
Did
on,
everybody in your life call you crazy and stupid and dumb?
you know,
Because
no
that's what
one,
happened to me on my
no one
group.
did. I think
Oh.
they were actually admiring. And my
Mm.
parents, I asked my mother once, and she said, well, it's kind of a good story. And I think they got something out of telling people he was super successful, and now he's doing this other thing, and he's doing well at that.
Right.
So I was on vroom vroom mode for quite a while now. Um, I'd spent years diving into the coaching world, and I quickly turned to coaching coaches because they were coming to me saying, how do you have clients in 5 countries? How do you work from home and choose your own hours? And how do you do
Choose
all
your own
this?
clients. Right.
Yeah, and I'm good with businesses and systems, so I naturally gravitated towards that. I built, I achieved a #1 ranking on Google for life coaching, which
Wow.
if you've
That's
ever tried
pretty.
any
Yeah.
search engine optimization, it's a big deal to get to #1.
Did you
And
do that like intentionally on purpose? Was that
oh,
your
I really
goal?
worked on SEO.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Right. Right.
sure.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's how I
That
built.
usually doesn't happen naturally or
No,
organically. No,
no.
you have to work on that. Yeah.
And that's how I built my email list to 150,000. So
Wow.
someone called it the world's largest coaching business. And I think at the time that may have been true. I created 10 digital products because
Okay.
I love training. And so as I'd say something to my clients, I'd be like, all right, I got to write this down. So I created ebooks and DVDs and CDs. And then I actually let go of the coaching one-on-one gradually as my digital income
Right.
started to increase. And And then I wrote a book called Get Paid for Who You Are. And Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup was kind enough to write the foreword to the book, which really helped. I had a lot of thought leaders promote the book. And I started speaking on stages and selling from the stage. And it was a really great career. And that's when the next veer happened.
Okay.
I got burned out.
Right.
I got burned out probably because I was pushing my adrenal glands too much and not taking care of my body. And also I got tired of that same niche. Like I'd said everything I wanted to say. For coaches, and I wanted to still work with people on business, but different business models. And also I wanted to work with people on their life. Like, let's get back to what really drove me when I first discovered personal growth and have people lean into their tough conversations, lean into truth, daring, and caring. I wanted to do that for the last 10, 15 years, but the other stuff was paying too well.
Right.
So it took...
You made your own golden handcuffs, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my system seems to be prone to anxiety and depression. So I've had that on and off over 20 years. And I was going through, I think, some depression maybe 5-6 years ago, and I was feeling burned out. And I thought, what would I do? Here's another 6-month question, right? Before I said, if I had 6 months off from work and could do anything, what would I do? Well, this time I asked myself, if I had 6 months to live, what would I do with my life?
Wow.
And the answer was, I would spend more time in Bali.
Okay. Yeah.
I've always loved the people. They were so special, and they were so grateful that I was there to enjoy their country. I would go back and learn the language. So I went for just 2 months. I said to my girlfriend, look, I'm going to go. I think this is my trip. If you really want to come with me. But I don't think you really do. So I'm just going to go. I went, and while I was there, people would say to me, do you live here? And I thought, well, let me see what it sounds like to try it out. So I'd start saying yes, just to see how it felt. And you know what, Jeff? It felt pretty good. So I went home, and while I was there, we broke up for good reasons.
Okay.
And then I went back. I sold everything that I had, and I kept 2 suitcases worth of stuff, and I took myself to Bali. To see what life was going to be like there. And I'd already let go of the coaching. Now I was letting go of the coaching income coming from the digital products because I just didn't want to email my list. I had nothing to email them. I wasn't generating anything. I wasn't creating anything.
Yeah.
So I went to Bali, and I'd like to say I did a whole bunch of spiritual healing, and maybe I did, but really I spent 8 months playing this one video game for 8 hours a day.
That's awesome.
I love that reaction.
We could hang out.
Dude, actually, a lot about it was pretty damn awesome. And maybe I'll have another phase like that in my life because I can't just dabble in this game. If I download it, I say out loud, I give my life to the game because I know I can't play it a little bit. I love you.
I went through something similar.
So that was a really exciting time. And then are you ready for the last veer?
Yes, I'm ready. This has been great, by the way.
All right, great. So the last veer, after 2.5 years in Bali, I learned 3 languages there.
Wow. My goodness.
Two forms
So you
of
weren't
Balinese.
screwing around on that computer the whole time?
No, that was just 8 months.
Okay.
And then I let that go. I taught myself Java and created my own app called Get Real. For people to connect deeper in relationship. And I did some things, but I was pretty burned out. And then what happened was I was kicked out of the nest. I was subletting my villa to tourists, and you can't do that in Bali. You can't do it in any country in the world, but most countries don't care if you're making a little bit of money by subletting a room in your house. Right. But in Bali, they care because you're taking away work from the locals. And it's really not appropriate. So what happened is I got busted for that, and a guy showed up with a badge and said I was wanted for questioning the next day. Now, I knew there'd be repercussions if I was ever caught, but I didn't realize how serious it could be. I didn't realize there was jail time possibly attached to this. and that I
Wow.
could have to negotiate a huge bribe while I'm stewing in jail for weeks. So
Oof.
it was a
Wow,
very
you really
scary,
stepped in it. Yeah.
yeah,
Ouch.
it was a very scary day. And I left Bali the same day,
Wow.
under advice from a lawyer.
Yikes.
And that was difficult. And I went back into some anxiety and depression, but I had to reinvent myself now. I'd let go of this huge email list. I'd let go my search engine ranking. I'd let
Right. It's
go
gone.
my
Yeah.
digital products.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't even have this subletting.
My identity for money is now gone, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what happened is a friend said to me, you're a great coach. Why don't you go back to coaching? And I needed someone to say that. And I said, all right, but I've got to focus. I've got to pick a target market. I've got to know what I'd love to work on, something that people will pay for. And
Right.
it's taken 2 years. It's been
Okay.
2 years and 3 months since that day that I left Bali. And now I've got the brand Play for Real, and I've chosen the target market of high performers. They're already successful in so many areas,
Right.
but they know there's more they can do in their business, and they want their life to be amazing as well.
Right.
So they don't want a life coach. They don't want a business coach. They want someone who can actually handle both of those realms, which is quite rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And
It's usually either or. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so now I help to get those people. I'm working with some executives. I'm working with some top entrepreneurs, and I get to help them to live life now so that on their deathbed, they will have zero regrets.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like a really fun life.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
great. I even get to in also on the flip side, to balance that out and to give a little back, I get to go into prisons and to help prison inmates with the same issues, like more truth, daring, and caring, living a regret-free life, even while they're a captive of the state,
Right. Right.
and they're tough conversations. CEOs and inmates both face tough conversations in their lives.
We all do.
You've been listening to Tough Conversations with David Wood. Now it's action time. Mastering your tough conversations will have a major impact on your team, your company, and you as a high-performing executive or entrepreneur. If you're ready, request a discovery session with me at playforreal.life so we can transform your team, your company, and you. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I would love you to help me spread this message of tough conversations in a very simple way. Just leave a public review at playforreal.life/podcast. And you may hear me read it out loud and thank you live on a future podcast. Now, let's play.